DLR.
This is Politinerds Radio with your hosts, Jazz Shaw and Doug Mataconis.
Welcome back to Politinerds, episode number 4. I'm one of your hosts, Jazz Shaw, here with Doug Mataconis. And tonight, Doug, we're going to be talking to Dan Hill, the president of Ervin Hill Strategies.
Yes, we are. And we're going to be talking specifically about the recent controversy at Duke University involving their decision to first have the Muslim call to prayer every Friday from the highest point on campus, which happens to be a church steeple. And then after, I think it was less than 48 hours, they ended up revoking that decision rather quickly, thanks to a lot of negative commentary from alumni and from the public.
Right, and we should point out to everybody before we get started with the interview that Dan is not a representative of Duke. He's not working for the Muslim Church. Dan handles negotiations for people working on their, in a more casual way to put it, their media reputation management, their strategy for handling controversial situations like this. And really just how badly Duke dropped the ball on this and what they could have done better. So this isn't really a forum on whether or not there should be a Muslim call to prayer on Fridays, but really how the university just mishandled this so badly.
And there's no doubt that they mishandled it badly. I mean, I don't know if you recall, but I recall within just a couple hours after the story broke, the reaction on social media was pretty negative. I mean, some of it, unfortunately so, but it was not very well thought out in terms of how they announced it, I think is the best way that you can put it.
Not well thought out is a very charitable way of you to say that, you know, and I appreciate that because we aim for a certain level of comedy on Politinerds. I agree with that. And with that, we'll be back after the commercial break with Dan Hill from Ervin Hill Strategies.
So just what is the Edge of Anarchy?
The show where liberals think we throw Ayn Rand books at homeless people in between bomb hits.
What?
What happens when Vigilant Liberty Radio ties an anvil to itself and jumps into a cavern of chaos Looney Tunes style? You get Edge of Anarchy.
Do I make myself clear?
This is Amanda, and join me every Monday night at 9 p.m. Eastern Time to find out what Edge of Anarchy is all about. Only on Vigilant Liberty Radio.
Hi, this is Matt Lewis from the Daily Caller, and you are listening to Vigilant Liberty Radio.
Welcome back to Politinerds Radio, episode number 4. Tonight we are joined by Dan Hill, president of Ervin Hill Strategy, who is going to be joining us to talk about Duke University and some of the, shall we say, controversial situations they found themselves in over the years, most particularly the recent episode when they decided to announce a Friday tradition of a call to prayer for Muslim students. And Doug, Duke's been
in the spotlight, probably for reasons they wouldn't care to, a few times in the last years.
Was that addressed to me? I'm sorry.
Yes, okay, why don't we start that again?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Jazz. I didn't realize you were going to go to me. Sorry about that.
Yeah, Taylor, let's start that again. Welcome back to Politinerds Radio. We're joined tonight by Dan Hill, president of Ervin Hill Strategies, for the 4th episode of Politinerds. Dan is going to be here tonight to talk to us about Duke University and some recent controversies they've been embroiled in, most particularly a decision they made briefly to have a Friday call to prayer for Muslim students. But this isn't the first time that Duke has run into controversy in recent years, and we're not here so much to focus particularly on that, but as to discuss how Duke could handle their PR situation and sort of the intersection between the media fest that revolves around these things. And Doug, they've had some other problems in the past.
Well, yeah, I mean, the most notable one, of course, is the controversy that revolved around the lacrosse team and the allegations of rape that turned out to be false, which, resulted in some pretty serious consequences for ultimately probably one of the best known prosecutors in North Carolina at the time. But this current controversy, and Mr. Hill, I guess we'll start with you, is, the genesis. I think it caught a lot of people by surprise when Duke just, seemingly out of the blue last week, as we sit here, it was last week, beginning of January, announced that they were going to start this tradition, this practice of doing the Friday call to prayer from the highest point in the university, which happens to be a chapel steeple, with seemingly without having prepared anyone for it. And I wondered, if you could talk, at least first about what your feeling is about how they handled it initially.
Well, thanks for having me. These are any issue, policy decision that deals with race, gender, or religion. Those are ones that can be lightning rods, regardless of which side you are on any particular issue. And institutions have to be extra diligent in the decision-making process when they come out with policies that will affect any particular group or organization. And it seems to me that Duke did not do enough due diligence on this. When an institution tries to chase public opinion, it can find itself in trouble. But here, given the situation that's going on around the world, and I'm not saying that that's a reason why they shouldn't allow Muslim students to practice the religion. They do that already, and that's a good practice. But this is something different. And it just seems to me that they didn't have enough dialogue and real discussion in the room when they made this decision. That's where people like, and I'm not trying to throw myself into this, but people who do what I do, reputation management, crisis, strategic communications, that's where we come into play as outsiders when you're making these kinds of decisions, because we would have thoroughly vetted this, and it's easy to predict the backlash that would have happened. No one should have been surprised by the feedback and response that they got to this decision. And so I am surprised that it came out with as little thought as it seems to have come out. And, of course, they reversed course pretty quickly.
Well,
okay, go ahead, Doug.
I was going to say, I think the one thing that surprised me, regardless of how, you might feel about the decision itself, is, it happened to come out at the same time that, as you said, other things going on in the world, particularly, just in the wake of the attacks in Paris, the arrests in Belgium, higher terror levels around the world. I mean, is that what you mean by that in particular, or?
Well, I don't think the terrorist issue really has any role in this decision, because we're talking about a different group of people, but it's being, you don't want to be tone deaf either. And so while it shouldn't change or it shouldn't impact what's going on with ISIS and other things around the world with extreme Islam, that shouldn't play into the policy decision about how they allow Muslim students on campus to practice their religion. But it should come into play in terms of reading the situation and understanding the sensitivity and how different stakeholders might react to it. So there is a distinction. I don't think it should be a part of the actual decision making, but I think it should be part of the understanding of the optics so that you're better prepared.
Okay, in terms of the optics, now let's get back to that for a minute. I think we would all like to live in a world where our educational institutes were just pure, unsullied, not touched by politics and things like that. But as educational institutes do choose to brand themselves. And I was reading, and I noticed that until last year, and it is a very recent change, Duke had a charter set up, and they had a list of what they call the aims of the institution. And as recently as last spring, it read, and I'm going to go ahead and quote to you, Dan, it said, "The aims of Duke University are to assert a faith in the eternal union of knowledge and religion set forth in the teaching of Jesus Christ, the Son of God, to advance learning in all lines of truth, to defend scholarship against all false notions and ideals, to develop a Christian love of freedom and truth, to promote a sincere spirit of tolerance, to discourage all partisan and sectarian strife, and to render the largest permanent service to the individual, the state, the nation, and the church. Unto these ends shall the affairs of this university always be administered." Now, when you lay that out and you leave it there for a century, that becomes part of the brand, doesn't it? And this was changed with very little fanfare in 2014 to a bit more generic, less, shall we say, Jesus-centric sort of thing. And they're getting a lot of pushback from their alumni or this, people they rely on for donations. I mean, how much should they have been looking out for that aspect of their brand in terms of treating them as a business?
Well, it's a good question. It is a private institution, and so it does have the liberty to choose basically what its tenets are and what its mission is, whereas a state university would have less of that. And as you say, for many years, maybe a century, it affiliated itself around a Protestant religion. And I guess it's still associated with the Methodist Church. I'm not 100% certain about that. But, organizations do change, though, over time. Southern Baptist conventions changed over the years. Different doctrines change. I mean, things. And so there has to be that ability for both private and public sector organizations to adjust to the times, adjust to new beliefs, adjust to new facts, whatever it might be. That said, they have stakeholders, and as a private institution, those stakeholders are funders, alumni, current students, families, the community, and you have to be sensitive to those stakeholders or run the risk of losing them. And so if the leadership there made a conscientious decision, a strategic one, that it wanted to move away from its 100-year-old mission set and kind of governing values to something that was a little more benign.